Welcome to This Explainer, where we're unpacking the highly controversial and honestly pretty fascinating theories from Jason Christoff's documentary, Planet Mind Control. It asks a seriously unsettling question. Are your thoughts actually yours? Christoff, who's a health and self-sabotage expert, lays out this whole framework suggesting our society runs on subtle, soft mind control. Today, we're going to completely decode his thesis, looking objectively at the psychological and biological tricks he claims are keeping everyone passive. Let's get right into it. Here's the roadmap for This Explainer. 1. The subconscious engine. 2. Media hypnosis. 3. The chemical compliance model. 4. The education factory. And 5. Reclaiming mental sovereignty. Section 1. The subconscious main engine. So let's dive right into what the film calls the absolute core target of all social engineering, our subconscious mind. Christoff kicks things off by poking a big hole in our sense of autonomy. I mean, we all like to think we're totally rational creatures, right? Making conscious, logical choices every single minute. But the documentary sets up this huge contrast between those conscious choices and our deeply programmed habits, kind of hinting that our logic might not actually be in the driver's seat. And get this, according to his framework, a whopping 95% of human behavior is driven purely by the subconscious. Think of it like a massive computer hard drive. But here's the critical vulnerability Christoff points out. This hard drive doesn't have a truth filter. It literally doesn't care if something is a fact or a total lie. It just blindly accepts whatever gets repeated. So by hammering this 95% with specific repeating messages, he argues that controllers can basically dictate how we act, what we eat, and even how we vote, completely bypassing that tiny little 5% of our conscious, logical brain. Section 2. Media hypnosis and frequencies. Now, let's look at exactly how that logical gatekeeper gets bypassed, specifically through the screens and audio we use every day. The film zeroes right in on the biological impact of our screens. Usually, when you're alert and critical, your brain is in an active beta wave state. But Christoff claims the specific flicker rate of modern screens actually induces this trance-like alpha state in just a matter of minutes. And when you drop into alpha, that resistant logical beta gatekeeper just shuts down. You become totally passive, highly suggestible, and whatever's on that screen slips right into your subconscious hard drive without any critical pushback. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Christoff's concept of predictive programming. He suggests that movies and TV shows aren't just there for entertainment. Actually, they're actively shaping our future compliance. By showing us specific fictional scenarios, say a dystopian society or a radical new way of living, the media is essentially priming us. So when similar events eventually roll around in real life, our subconscious already feels like they're familiar or even inevitable. It completely diffuses our natural resistance. He even takes this whole idea into the audio realm, specifically looking at how modern music is tuned. The film claims that contemporary music is universally tuned to 440 Hz rather than what Christoff calls a more natural 432 Hz, and he argues this 440 Hz frequency is absolutely intentional. It supposedly creates this subtle underlying agitation and anxiety inside us. It basically leaves listeners feeling subconsciously stressed out and desperate for some kind of external comfort, like buying things or taking medication just to soothe that manufactured anxiety. Section 3. The chemical compliance model. And that manufactured anxiety is the perfect bridge into this next part, where Christoff firmly links our physical health directly to our mental freedom. So the crucial takeaway here is how everyday substances apparently work together to control behavior. Christoff asserts that things like fluoride and caffeine aren't just minor health topics, they are strategic tools. On one hand, he argues fluoride acts as a pacifier, heavily calcifying the pineal gland, dulling our intuition, and just generally lowering our metabolic fire. But then on the flip side, you have caffeine. He views caffeine as a literal chemical whip. It forces your adrenal glands to spike cortisol, locking your brain into this reactive fight-or-flight survival mode. And that actually steals blood flow right out of your logical prefrontal cortex and dumps it straight into your primitive hindbrain. Put those together, and the film says you get a serious paradox. Fluoride makes you physically exhausted, while caffeine keeps your nervous system totally on edge. The result? A population that is tired but wired. We've all felt that, right? Think about that 3 p.m. slump at the office. You are physically way too drained to think deeply, but artificially wired enough to just keep clicking away. Christoff calls this the perfect slave frequency. You're too exhausted to rebel or question things, but just wired enough to go at work, pay your taxes, and buy stuff. Section 4. education as social engineering. Next up, the explainer shifts to the institution where Christoff claims all this behavioral conditioning actually starts, the modern school system. Christoff argues that our modern schools operate like literal factories, based on the 19th century Prussian model, which, by the way, was originally designed to churn out obedient soldiers and compliant factory workers. Look at it through his lens. Schools use Pavlovian bells to dictate when you can meet your basic bodily needs. They chop knowledge up into these isolated 50-minute blocks so you can't build a holistic worldview. And they heavily reward blind compliance over actual independent intelligence. Plus, he argues that the second a kid naturally resists sitting still in this rigid environment, they're quickly labeled with a disorder and given a chemical intervention. To back this up, he points straight to the famous Asch conformity experiments, which proved people will literally deny what's right in front of their own eyes just to fit in with a group. Christoff explains that schools weaponize this through age segregation. By grouping kids only with their exact peers year after year, it embeds this deep, terrifying fear of being ostracized from the tribe. And he argues this results in an adult society where the vast majority will happily self-censor and swallow groupthink just to avoid social death. Section 5. Reclaiming your mental sovereignty. All right, after outlining all these vectors of control, media, chemicals, education, the documentary finally pivots to a much more empowering tone, offering a blueprint for what Christoff calls the hero's journey to break the spell. A foundational piece of his solution is something he calls information hygiene. Christoff argues, pretty simply, that you can't heal a programmed mind while it's still actively receiving the programming. Makes sense, right? So he advocates for a strict 30-day media fast. That means completely cutting out TV, mainstream news, and social media. The whole goal is to finally break that alpha wave trance and give your critical, logical beta mind the space it needs to safely reboot. He actually structures this into a really specific daily protocol. In the morning, you reclaim your biology. That means zero caffeine, drinking pure, fluoride-free water to flush your system out, and getting immediate, natural sunlight to reset your circadian rhythm. Midday is all about maintaining that hygiene, sticking to whole foods and practicing conscious, deep breathing to keep yourself out of that panicked fight-or-flight state. And then the evening ends with a screen death hour, right before bed. You replace the blue light and media hypnosis with empowering literature to actively overwrite any negative programming you picked up during the day. But hey, the physical stuff is only half the battle. Since your subconscious was programmed through years and years of repetition, Christoff insists you have to manually overwrite it through daily psychological defense. We're talking looking in the mirror and speaking positive affirmations out loud. It means literally pausing when you feel sudden fear or guilt, taking a breath, and asking yourself, wait, is this actually my thought, or is this a program? And crucially, it involves practicing tiny, daily acts of nonconformity. You're basically training your courage like a muscle so you can actually withstand the pressure of the tribe. We'll wrap up this explainer with Christoff's ultimate warning about the illusion of modern freedom. He suggests that the most effective cage is the one you can't even see. By laying out this whole framework of subconscious, chemical, and social manipulation, the documentary really challenges us to look closely at our daily habits and our deeply held beliefs. So I'll leave you with this profound and honestly pretty provocative question to chew on as you go about your day. Are you truly sovereign in your thoughts, or are you just comfortably compliant?